I made my girlfriend homeless after she lost her temper. Was I in the wrong? I'm 26, and for the past few months I've been living with my girlfriend in my apartment, covering rent and all the bills because she was kicked out of her parents' place. She has a job, but she's terrible with money and hasn't been able to build up any savings. A few weeks ago my little brother, Samuel, moved in with me. Our grandparents are planning to move overseas and couldn't take him. Since our parents passed away when I was in college, I couldn't bring him with me until I got my own place. Even though I love him more than anything, I felt it was better to let him stay with our grandparents until I was settled. But once I had my apartment, I'd visit him almost every day, and when he needed a spot, I gladly opened my door. I warned my girlfriend ahead of time that my brother was coming, hoping she'd roll out the welcome mat and make him feel at home. At first she threw a fit, then begrudgingly agreed, probably because there wasn't much she could do about it. But over the last few weeks she's become pretty hostile toward him. My brother is shy and has anxiety, he sometimes even has panic attacks, so I really stressed that she be patient and kind. Instead, yesterday he accidentally spilled his drink on my pants, and she snapped at him, calling him worthless. He broke down in tears and clung to me, apologizing over and over. That was the last straw. I told her she had to leave, no discussion, knowing full well it would leave her with nowhere to go. It hurt me to make her homeless, but protecting my brother came first. Am I in the wrong for kicking her out immediately, without giving her time to find a place? Standing up for someone you love isn't always easy, especially when it means burning a bridge with someone else. Now imagine your best friend casually claiming she's way out of your league, and expecting you to just agree. Yeah, this next one? It gets real uncomfortable, real fast. I told my friend you're not that hot. You won't believe her reaction. I need to know, am I the bad for bluntly telling my friend she wasn't as attractive as she thought? A couple of nights ago I was just hanging out with her, and we decided to have dinner delivered through DoorDash. About half an hour later, my phone buzzed to let me know the courier was almost at the door. Without a word, she bolted out of the living room and disappeared. I was left scratching my head until the doorbell rang and I went to grab our food. She reappeared, snatched the bag from me, and started pulling out our order without a word. Still puzzled, I asked what was going on. She explained she hates being seen by delivery drivers because they always try to hit on her. Then she pulled up a folder full of messages from delivery people and other service workers asking her out. She says it happens all the time. I was floored, and we got into a pretty intense chat about how creepy and inappropriate that behavior is. At one point she shrugged and said, "Well, that's just one of the downsides of being super pretty. If I wasn't so far out of your league, you'd be all over me, too." Honestly, I burst out laughing because it sounded so over the top. But when she kept doubling down, I couldn't help myself and blurted, "Look, you're honestly not that attractive. Most of those guys are just desperate and fooling themselves if they think they've got a shot with someone like you." She tried to play it off, but the rest of the evening was ice cold, and we haven't really talked since that night. Looking back, I can see how we both played a part in making things awkward. She flaunted her looks and invited that conversation, and I hit back harder than I should have. So tell me, am I the bad here? Sometimes, honesty isn't the best policy, especially when it's brutally blunt. Now let's shift from emotional drama to cafeteria chaos. When your buddy keeps stealing your food, it's time to get creative. And maybe just a little bit greasy. I used bacon as a sneaky anti-theft hack. You won't believe what happened. I'm far from a health guru. Around lunch I usually load up on cheese fries in the cafeteria. Lately, one of my buddies kept swiping bites from my tray and filching snacks from the rest of us whenever we looked away. It was more of an annoying game than anything serious. Then I realized he follows halal rules, and our school even offers the option to sprinkle bacon bits on those fries. That's when I had my lightbulb moment. I started piling on crispy bacon, not because I'm obsessed with it, but because I knew he'd steer clear of anything that broke his dietary code. The first time I sat down with my bacon-topped fries, he glanced over and blurted, "Man, why'd you do that?" while the others chimed in, backing him up. They accused me of disrespecting his beliefs, so I fired back that if he wasn't going to respect my food, his own rules shouldn't shield him from the outcome. To me, it made perfect sense. If someone's going to keep stealing my lunch, I'm entitled to protect it however I can. What do you think? Was I justified, or did I take it too far? Personally, I'm giving myself 0 out of 5 bads, since locking your door after someone tries to rob you doesn't make you the villain. Sometimes, solving a problem is as simple as knowing someone's boundaries and slapping some bacon on it. But now we move from snack attacks to relationship red flags. When you put in 0 effort, don't be surprised when someone walks away. My son got dumped after letting his girlfriend do all the traveling. Am I the bad? I never realized my parents had been hiding a big family secret from me until now. My son has been seeing a girlfriend far away for almost 2 years. She was a fantastic, kind-hearted woman, and we all welcomed her into our home with open arms. Month after month, she'd fly here for a weekend, while he never once bothered to book a ticket to visit her. I brought it up with him repeatedly, urging him to consider flying out to see her instead of expecting her to handle every trip. He refused every time, and I suspect my wife's constant worries about his safety in the air didn't make it any easier. I sat down with both of them and told him how perfect she seemed for him. She was even willing to move here, as long as he agreed to make the trip to her country occasionally, which I thought was more than fair. He again declined, insisting he had 0 interest in traveling. Over time, he just got lazier and actually told us he was fine never going anywhere even on vacation. Then, last week, he broke the news, she dumped him. Since we're still Facebook friends, I checked her page for more details. She posted a heartfelt apology about being sorry it didn't work out, said she understood things happen, and hinted she's already seeing someone new. My wife and I are convinced she must have been seeing that new guy before the breakup. I told them both that I agreed with her decision, he should have seen it coming. He didn't put in the effort she deserved, and I hope this teaches him a lesson for next time. I said he earned this outcome by letting her spend all her time and money flying here. My wife and son were livid with me for saying it. They thought I was being terrible, and my wife even accused me of being cruel. So, am I the bad? I still stand by my words. I'd give myself about half a bad out of 5. Tough love from your parents can hurt, but he really needed to hear it. He's acting like a spoiled kid who expects everyone in his life to cater to him, and sometimes a little reality check is exactly what's needed. Tough love doesn't always feel good, but sometimes, it's the only way to make a point stick. Now let's lighten the mood with a coffee shop prank that flips the script on rude customers. You'll be surprised who ends up apologizing. This coffee shop prank made angry customers apologize. You won't believe what happened. I'm a high school senior working weekends at a local coffee shop. My weekend shift buddies include John, the owner's son. He happens to attend the same school as me. He manages our shift, though it's a pretty laid-back gig. John is easygoing and always up for a laugh. There's also Sebastian, a college student who fills in on weekend shifts. Sometimes customers storm in and get irate over the smallest things. They absolutely blow up over trivial issues. I'm not sure if they're already upset or just looking for someone to take it out on, but it gets intense. Seriously, how miserable do you have to be to yell at a teenager for fixing your coffee? So John and I came up with a little scheme to teach them a lesson and maybe calm them down. One morning, a guy flipped out because he thought our coffee wasn't hot enough, even though I handed it straight from the machine. That's when John stormed in saying, "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" The customer immediately turned his frustration on John. John raised his voice and said, "This behavior is unacceptable." Then he looked at me and announced, "You're fired." I dropped my shoulders, put on my most pitiful face, and begged, "Please don't fire me. My family really needs this paycheck," I added, voice trembling. "I can't lose this job," I pleaded. "I'm begging you," I said, practically in tears. John held firm and told me to strip off my apron and pack up my belongings. The furious customer immediately backtracked, stammering, "Hey, it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to let her go," he mumbled. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," he added. John calmly replied, "We pride ourselves on top-notch service. After all the drama, I stayed on the payroll, no job lost." That was just one of several times we've pulled the stunt. Whenever someone flies off the handle at Sebastian or me, John bursts in and pretends to fire us. Almost always, the customer apologizes, admitting they went too far. It actually makes people pause and realize their actions have real consequences. When I told my friends about it, a few thought it was cruel to let someone believe they'd cost me my livelihood. Am I the bad guy for pulling this prank? Sometimes, a little roleplay can teach people a lot about respect and give you a great story to tell. Now imagine your teen destroys a pricey gift in a rage, and then demands you replace it. This next story? Equal parts absurd and relatable. I laughed so hard when my teen broke his $400 chair then demanded a new one. I'm pretty sure I crossed the line, but I still can't shake how absurd the whole thing was. He's about to turn 16 this summer, and for Christmas we splurged on a high-end gaming chair since he spends hours every day blasting through online shooters. He's been dealing with anger issues, he's actually in therapy for it, and those competitive games seem to push his temper to a breaking point more often than not. But he'd been making real progress lately, so I thought rewarding him with that chair was a solid way to celebrate his efforts. Boy, was I off base. By December 26th he was already in a match, things went south, and players kept taunting him until he totally lost his cool. He ended up shouting a string of profanity, hoisted that fancy chair over his head, and hurled it onto the floor so hard the backrest snapped in half. Once I calmed him down, we had a heart-to-heart, no more online multiplayer at home until his therapist signs off, and we went over healthier ways for him to manage stress. I was firm, his outburst was totally unacceptable, and he'd be grounded for the foreseeable future. Trust me, I don't brush off his meltdowns, he and I have these serious talks all the time. This is a real problem, and I treat it with the gravity it deserves. But later that afternoon, he marched back to me and insisted I replace the chair. After all, it was a present, he loved it, and it's only fair, he argued. I was so stunned, part disbelief, part disappointment, that I erupted into a full-blown laughing fit, gasping for air and practically weeping tears. Every time he tried to make his case, I just laughed harder and harder, asking him, how on earth is it fair for me to buy you another gift after you smashed the first one out of pure anger? Unsurprisingly, he got even angrier and started tearing up, but I simply couldn't stop laughing. I even tried to walk away and tell him to drop it, but whenever he whined, "But Dad, I need a chair, what else am I supposed to do?" I cracked up all over again. Finally, I told him, "I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at how ridiculous it is for a teenager to smash something in a rage and then demand a replacement." He's still fuming and feels totally aggrieved. I do regret bursting out like that and honestly wonder if I had a mini stress break myself, because I've never lost it like that before. Still, I can't entirely fault myself, since his demand was so absurd it would strike almost anyone as laughable. So tell me, how badly did I screw this up? There's parenting, and then there's holding in your laughter when your kid pulls something completely ridiculous. Next, we're headed on a honeymoon with a twist. Imagine sneaking away from your own in-laws on your honeymoon. Yeah, you heard that right. We fled our honeymoon hotel at 8 p.m., you won't believe why. Did I mess up by sneaking away in the middle of our honeymoon? My husband and I were supposed to be savoring every moment of our week at an all-inclusive resort, all courtesy of his parents' generous wedding gift. But when we arrived, we discovered they'd secretly booked themselves a room for the exact same week and expected us to do everything together. In real life, we only see them 2 or 3 times a year, and honestly, they can be pretty overbearing, and they haven't exactly warmed up to me. They weren't right next door or anything, and our room was ours, but they knocked on our door every morning at 6, dragging us along to all 3 meals like clockwork. We politely told them we wanted honeymoon privacy, and they just shrugged, reminding us that we already had our own room. We even faked stomachaches to skip meals, only to have them order room service and sit in on our charade until we felt ridiculous. Finally, my husband lost it and confronted them, pointing out that a honeymoon was sacred couple time, and they shot back that they paid for it, so we should be grateful and tag along. Here's the kicker, before their surprise gift, we'd already stashed away enough money for our own honeymoon, and we still had that fund untouched. We scoped out a different town and realized we could buy round-trip train tickets for under £60 total, then spend a few nights in a cozy hotel using only half our honeymoon savings. With the other half, we'd have an entire week to ourselves, no in-laws in sight, without them even noticing we'd slipped away. It was 8 p.m. when we made the call. Trains ran hourly tonight, and every half hour tomorrow, so we could be on our way in no time. Would we really be the bad ones if we quietly escaped his parents and kept our little adventure a secret? Update: our train pulls into our destination in about 40 minutes. We've booked a charming hotel for tonight and can't wait to spend the next 5 days just the two of us. Sometimes a quiet getaway is the loudest message you can send. Now, let's talk guitars and guilt. When a legendary vintage deal turns into workplace warfare, things get messy. I nabbed a vintage '52 Telecaster for $5,000, now they're demanding it back. I've been playing guitar since I was a kid, 24 years of chasing the perfect tone, so when my wife told me her coworker's late dad had a guitar to sell, I knew I had to look into it. She sent me a photo and the asking price, and when I saw it was a mint-condition 1952 Telecaster with the original receipts, no less, I was already picturing it hanging on my wall. The seller thought $5,000 was fair after a quick online search, and honestly, that sounded like a steal to me, so I texted back, "I'll take it," and arranged to pick it up the next day. When I brought it home and told my wife what I'd paid versus what it was actually worth, roughly 50 grand, depending on the buyer, her jaw hit the floor. 2 weeks later, her coworker sheepishly admitted he'd learned its true value and wanted the family heirloom returned, but I'd already fallen in love with its playability. I politely told him the guitar was off the market, and that decision blew up into accusations of scamming and even an HR complaint, all because I played my cards right. His company's HR shrugged it off as a personal dispute, but back at work, he made things so tense for my wife that she had to file harassment reports twice before they actually let him go. He even dragged me into it with threats, so I ended up getting a restraining order to keep him from contacting us again. After blocking his calls and messages, I haven't heard a peep from him in over a year, and honestly I feel zero guilt. This wasn't a family heirloom he cherished, just pure market value. So now I'm left wondering, did I pull a savvy deal, or was I out of line for holding on to that vintage beauty? Not every good deal comes without drama, but when it comes to guitars and jealousy, this one's a true solo. Now, from music to mayhem, we're building walls, burning bridges, and taking back the backyard. This neighborhood showdown? It's wild. You won't believe why I built a wall around my backyard. Neighbors are furious. I live in a European country where property lines can be a real puzzle thanks to our history. My house sits on what feels like most of the land, about 90% of the stretch from our back doors to the woods, while everyone else around me has just narrow strips behind theirs. The bit immediately behind my house was already fenced, and my wife and daughters used that patch for gardening. Beyond that, it's been an open field where neighborhood kids often play soccer, always asking my permission first, which I happily granted, as long as they left when I said so. A few years back, I had a pool installed at the far end of my yard and fenced it off too. That was fine, everyone respected it. But then a new family moved in next door, and their kids treated my land like public space. I'd catch them trampling the flowers and vegetables, grilling on my lawn for picnics, and even climbing into the pool when I wasn't around. When I talked to their parents, they shrugged, saying they thought it was all communal. The tipping point came when I returned from a short trip to find a fire pit built on my property, surrounded by empty beer cans. That was it. I hired a friend's construction crew, bought the materials, and within a week I'd spent a chunk of change to build a solid wall around the entire perimeter: garden, field, pool, everything. Whenever anyone asked why, I simply told them who to thank for taking my land without permission. Now the original neighborhood kids are upset that their informal soccer pitch is gone, and they've started teasing the new family's kids. I admit I feel a bit guilty, maybe I went too far. But they were trespassing repeatedly, ignoring clear boundaries. In my mind, I set the rules and they chose to break them. So am I the bad for wanting peace and privacy, even if it meant cutting off everyone's playfield? When people can't respect your space, sometimes you've got no choice but to build your peace brick by brick. Next, we dive into a dip, literally. A family brunch, a very questionable appetizer, and one unforgettable prank that didn't quite land. My lobster dip sparked a family feud, you won't believe the fallout. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and a few months ago my brother Asher tied the knot with Claire. She and her family are polite but pretty formal, while my side of the clan never misses an opportunity for a laugh. The morning after their wedding, they hosted a cozy brunch at their place. As I walked in, I noticed a large platter on the coffee table holding what looked like an adult-themed dip molded into, well, let's just say it had everyone in stitches. My cousin even quipped it was extra creamy, diving into the shaft with her cracker. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. This was nothing like the usual stiff etiquette I'd expected from Claire's folks. Then Dad, my brother-in-law's dad, leaned over, dead serious, and said, No, it's a lobster. Cue more confusion, but that was just the start. A few weekends later, I decided to recreate the lobster dip as a prank at my own housewarming party. To be polite to Claire, who lived out of town, I skipped sharing photos online, but some friends couldn't resist, and a mutual buddy posted snaps of the risque shape to Instagram. Soon enough, Claire saw them and blew up at me. My brother called, furious that I disrespected his new wife and her family, demanding I apologize for supposedly crossing the line. I was stunned. Claire had never mentioned her discomfort before, and I hadn't meant any harm. In my view, it was just a cheeky joke, a literal lobster dip gone sideways. I refused to say sorry, arguing that a little levity shouldn't merit such a dramatic reaction. When all was said and done, my brother accused me of being the bad, and some mutual friends sided with him. Verdict: I'm giving myself 0 out of 5 bads. Sometimes a harmless gag backfires, but that doesn't make you a villain for serving a lobster dip. Sometimes, even a joke in poor taste can spark a family feud. And when food's involved, watch out. Finally, we wrap things up with a trip to K-pop heaven, and a boyfriend who completely missed the assignment. Get ready for some second-hand embarrassment. You won't believe how my reaction to my girlfriend meeting K-pop idols blew up on me. I'm a 23-year-old guy, and my girlfriend is 24. Last year she surprised me by winning a radio contest that let her meet and snap a quick photo with one of her all-time favorite K-pop acts, NCT. She was absolutely over the moon, shaking in the car with excitement and confessing she wasn't sure she'd even manage to walk up to them. I, on the other hand, was pretty indifferent. I just wanted the whole thing to wrap up. When we got there, the band was polite enough. They said hello, shook her hand, even offered a friendly, platonic hug. But she burst into tears halfway through, kept bowing awkwardly, and I was dying of second-hand embarrassment. A few of the guys shook my hand too, but most barely noticed me, probably reading my lack of enthusiasm like a neon sign. I didn't mind, it was her moment, not mine. Later, over drinks with her K-pop-obsessed friends, she couldn't stop raving about how surreal the experience felt. That's when I lost it. I laughed, recounted every cringeworthy bow and tear, and joked they were probably snickering behind her back. Silence fell like a stone. Everyone glared at me. I tried to defend myself, pointing out that a 24-year-old fangirling over teenage idols was a bit much, but she shot back that at least she made an effort, unlike me, who hadn't said a word. What was I supposed to say to a group of Korean performers? Hell if I know. We hashed it out privately later, but to this day we've never fully moved past it. She barely plays K-pop around me anymore. Fast forward about a year, she just spent a small fortune on 2 more NCT tickets for her and a friend, complete with another meet and greet. I joked I'd buy a ticket just to keep her company, minus the fan meet, but she shot me down cold, claiming she didn't want me to be bored or embarrassed again. Her tone felt icy, like she was still punishing me for that joke I made ages ago. So, was I the bad for laughing at my grown-up girlfriend's teenage fangirl meltdown?